Because reading is what?
Fundamental.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Do You Read BTS? I'm Lisa.
And I'm Delaze. Welcome back, guys. So this week we did an episode on a story that was recommended to us by one of our friends on Twitter. She recommended the story called Sweeter Than Sweet by Gimmesumsuga on AO3. So that's Archive of Our Own. We haven't really read any stories on Archive of Our Own. Really, only stories we've read have been on Wattpad. So this was a different experience for us, but the story was so good.
It was so good.
It's long, and we found out it's still going. So even though we're gonna get to the end of the episode, it is not actually the end of the story. So we may have to do like some updates or something later on.
So first of all, I just want to say
I'm already knowing.
It took us forever to read this story.
Yeah. I mean, it was during a lot, like the holidays, and it just is a longer story. So it took a little bit of time to read, but we made it.
Pushed through.
We got there. Yeah, we pushed through. Lord. All right. Let's get started.
So at the beginning of a story, the girl doesn't have a name, does she?
No, she's your name.
She's
yeah.
your name. So, of course, you guys know that I'm going to call her the girl. All right, this girl that had a friend named Sam, and they wanted to go hang out. So they went to a club called Plush. Is it called Plush?
I think so. I can't remember the name of the club.
Yeah, the club was named Plush, and we would say, you would know why later. So,
right. Okay, yeah.
So the club was named Push. She goes to this club. Her friend Sam is like very social. She likes to go and just like talk to everybody. At this time, she's pretty much just like dancing with people, having a good time. And the girl is sitting at the bar just like, I'm ready to go, but let me have some drinks. So she's having drinks and she's getting all tipsy and stuff. And at that time, Sam came back from the floor and was like talking to her. And then she was like, who is that staring at you? Like, and she looked, and it was Jimmy that was just staring at her. Like, Jimmy looking all fine, like, why, honey? And I could just imagine looking at her.
The look, you know how you be giving them stares? Oh, girl.
The look he gave her.
Man, I was like, when I read that, I'm like, oh, yes, this Jimmy, okay.
Like you just knew what that stare looked like.
Yes, you could picture it all.
Yes, so he was giving her the stare, and she was like, oh, he ain't looking at me. And she turned and looking, and she got looking back, and he's still staring at her.
Right.
And so he goes up and talking to her, and look, and how it was described in the book is like he was walking through the crowd, and all he was doing was staring at her. She was just I could just imagine this.
Man, I would have melted.
Sorry.
I would have melted.
Yes, he was just staring at her, walking through the crowd, walking to her, and she all flustered and shy and scary and stuff.
Oh,
and so,
gosh.
Yes. And so, he goes and talks to her or whatever. And then he wants to take her outside. Yeah, they were sitting on like a bench or something. So he took her by the bench and he just like talking to her all sweet and nice, kind of hypnotizing her basically. And then, she getting all flustered and ready, even though she a virgin at this part. It's like she's already willing to give herself up for him, and she's a virgin and everything, but she's ready to give it up because how he talking and how he got her feeling at this point. And so, he got her feeling all good and stuff, and then all of a sudden he bit her, and that's when we figured out.
Wait.
Huh?
They were like making out and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, they were making out. And that's when she was ready to give it up.
Yeah, it started getting high and heavy.
It was getting real heavy because that kiss had to be
intense.
Have y'all seen Jimmy's lips? Okay.
Okay.
And so that's when he bit her, and she figured out then, and we figured out that he was a vampire.
Right. Because
like we didn't know.
We didn't know, and in the way that the way that it was going, you're like, he bit her, and immediately you're like, he's a vampire. He has to be a vampire. Like that's just real random. And so he bit her, and he's like drinking from her, and she's becoming lightheaded, but like she's also feels so like high and energized by what has gone. The next thing she knows, she's slipping out of consciousness. So after he flees, and she goes. They get her to the hospital, right? She's in the hospital for like...
She wakes up in the hospital.
Yeah, she wakes up in the hospital. She's getting like a blood transfusion. Yep. Lord.
IV drips and everything.
IV drips, yeah. He like pretty much drained her, almost killed her. So
But in the story, how it says is he almost killed her, and usually he does kill.
Right.
But he didn't.
Right.
For some reason.
Right. So that was so crazy. I'm just thinking about it. Anyway, because she ends up going. So she has that whole experience happen. Sam's like, "What the hell? What's going on? Like, who did this to you?" And all she kept saying was she didn't know. She didn't know, and she kept saying that it wasn't the guy that they saw at the bar. She's like, it wasn't him. It just wasn't him. I just realized that you can watch. You can read the story. All the chapters together, like you could just keep swiping up, go like next chapter. I just found that out.
What?
Yeah, girl. I just realized that we're still trying to learn how to use AO3, so this has been a little bit of a learning curve, but yeah. Okay, well, cool.
We've been spoiled by Wattpad.
Definitely have. But man, I'm so glad this story was recommended to us because it is so good. And sorry, side note, the story was like created off of the inspiration was Blood, Sweat, and Tears, like the song. So that's where this all kind of came about. But anyway, she gets out of the hospital and she's feeling like still kind of like what the hell happened, but she wants that to happen again, like not necessarily the getting bitten part, but like to find Jimin and see him again because that was such a good...
It gave her the most euphoric feeling.
Yeah,
like that close to death.
Yeah. And so she's like, what do I need to do to find him again? Because that was lit. I want that to be part of my life.
Right, because when she got out of the hospital and she went back home, Sam was asking her all these questions of like, somebody attacked you, who attacked you, and she would not tell her who attacked her because she was just like, I don't know why I feel this way, but I gotta find him again.
Right. Oh man. So she goes she goes to the place again and she sees another guy and she's like, there's no way that two vampires come to this place. Like this can't be a thing. And this time it's Hobie. But Hobie's different than Jimin in that Hobie's more social, more like loud, kind of rambunctious. He's got a bunch of people around him. He's like kind of living up that whole thing, unlike Jimin, who was kind of just like in the crowd, like kind of chilling back. So she's immediately drawn and starts to go over to him, and he ends up letting her sit with him, and he introduces himself or whatever, and they kind of sit there talking for a little bit, and she said that she notices that he's paying attention to this girl, and the next thing she knows is like they're kind of sitting there, and then she looks over and she's like slunched over because Hobie bit the girl and drained her.
And then said, "Oh, she's drunk."
She's drunk. So not only did he just kill her, but he just lied on her.
Right. He was like, "Oh, she's just drunk.
She's just drunk. She'll be fine in the morning," knowing that she wasn't going to come back.
But the girl knew what
she already knew what it was
because she been through it.
Yep. She said that it looked like they were just getting hot and heavy, but for real, she knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't remember.
And then Hobie was talking to her as if, I hope you're not like that too.
Right.
I hope you can handle your drinks.
Right. And she's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up having a conversation, and he's like, "You've met one of us before, I can tell." Tells Kobe like, "Yeah, I ran into this guy, blah blah." Pretty much telling her he met Jimin, and she wanted to see him again. That's why she's there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, "I figured you probably saw him, whatever, whatever." And he looks like he's about to get her, or not again, but it looks like Kobe's about to get the girl. And so right when
Mm-hmm. And she sure about to give it to him.
she sure was. And just
Mm-hmm.
as she's like about, mind you, girl's still a virgin.
Yes.
So just as she's about to let him do his thing, Jimin pops up.
And say, mine.
Mine. She is mine. Back up.
Right. And for some reason he is possessive over her, which he don't even know why.
Right. This story, man, it went places, man.
Yes.
Because I forgot about that whole thing, how it all started. Because looking, so that ends up happening, and Hobie's like, "Oh, my bad. I was just gonna see if it was a thing. Like, cool." And so Jimin's like kind of upset. He's like, "Yeah, we're cool, whatever." But he like leaves. He's kind of mad, and he death wish to the girl. So yeah, Jimin pulls her out of the place, and he's like, "Are you freaking stupid?" And she's like, "I just wanted to see you again," and all this other stuff, and
he basically was like, wow.
right. But mind you, they got to bounce because Hobie just killed the girl in the club, and
Yeah,
people
and
are
then
starting to
that's
catch
when
on.
and that's when the girl said, like her friend was coming up and she was noticing what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was like, while like Jimmy and Hobie was going like kind of back and forth, she was like, y'all, this girl is coming up and she see her friend. And that's when the girl starts screaming and they ducked off.
Yep, they bounce. So
Yes.
so it's Hobie, Jimin, and the girl in the car, and Jimin's like, "Well, you need to
No, they haven't gotten the car yet. They went outside the door and there's the car. And then he was like, come on, hurry up, because Hobie was running across the street.
Oh, right.
And Jimmy was like, come on, the car right here, hurry up. And she was like, take me with you. And he was like, no,
No,
why?
yeah, take me with you. Why would I take? She's like, just take
And
me.
he was like mean to her
Yeah,
too.
he was, because for real, he really didn't have time to argue. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they got to get out of there because they're
Right.
gonna get exposed, all the other stuff. So
And Jimmy looking like, why do you want me? Why do you want to go with me? And I almost killed you.
yeah, oh my gosh, so crazy. He had a point though. Honestly, he had a point.
Yeah. And so she got in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then they took off, and he was like, okay, now tell him your address. And she was like, no,
Right.
I want to go with you. He was like, what? Why do you want to go with me?
Right.
Because I just want to go with you. Like, she wanted to go with him. Like, I feel like she was in love with him
Right then and there. He's like, I could have killed you. She's like, but you didn't. I've been like, yeah, no, take me home, please. I don't know. I might have not. I might have stayed. But
I don't know. I mean, I would be like, hey, this is my address. Come back anytime.
Come back anytime, yeah. Nah, I'm gonna
But
just come live with you now. Like,
yeah.
that was crazy because you're like, what the heck? Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Like, she never went back home.
she never goes back home. That night, she made the decision to leave her life behind.
Yes, like literally everything.
Everything. And so
She
she tells it her reasoning and what to kind of make him be like, yeah, you can come stay to the house is, well, you can feed from me. And that was like literally all he needed to be like, all right, bet, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
So crazy. So crazy.
So she went back to the house.
Yeah.
And Jimmy pretty much put her in his room and was like,
don't leave.
No, do not leave this room. Like, nobody's to know that you're here except for like Hobie.
Yeah.
And Hobie was just like laughing at them. Like, he was just like, whatever, you know.
Right. He did tell him though, he was like, she's a keeper. He did tell him that early when they was like getting back and stuff. So
Hobie is always the voice of reason.
Right? He be knowing stuff. All the stories really I've read, hope he be like, he sees the future and is like, no, this is gonna be good for you.
Right, for real.
Goodness.
It made me think of Bloody
Yes.
Hobie.
Yes, because
Cause
Bloody
like Hobie,
Kobe, yeah, he knew like stuff
yeah,
that was gonna happen.
yeah, cause like he was the gangster and the killer, just like he is in this story. But
Mm-hmm.
he knew he was also smart and knew things.
Mm-hmm. So they get back to the house. She's staying there. He tells her don't leave. And he's like, okay, well, you know that you're gonna be living with a bunch of vampires, right? And you're okay with that. And she's like, yeah, no, it's fine. And he's like, it's 7 of us, girl. And she's like, no, cool, no, 7, that's fine, totally. If you would have said 8, maybe not, but 7, I can see 7. Like,
Right.
gosh,
She's like, I know, I'm good with that.
I'm good with it. It's fine.
Literally the next day.
The next day, gosh, she didn't listen.
Cause he like get her like they go to bed like nothing happened that night, did it? Nothing happened that night.
Mm-mm.
And she goes to bed, and then when she wakes up, she gets up, and Jimmy's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets up. Don't she take a bath and all that good stuff?
Yeah, she takes a bath because so that she
Yeah,
can be
something of
appropriate.
his. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a shirt or something.
Yeah. And so she just walking around the room being nosy. I would have did the same thing. Cause honey, if you can imagine this room, it is big and huge
Right.
with a big old closet. She was just being nosy, and that's what I would have done.
Yeah, same.
So, so she was just like looking at everything, exploring the room or whatever. And then she hear Jen and Hobie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Hobie was Hobie trying to not get him to go in there, or did Hobie tell him? Because some reason he knew that she was up in there.
Well, because remember they could smell her.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I think he knew like somebody's here that's not typically here. Like, what's the deal?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where it happened. So he comes into the room, and they're like, "Well, who is this?"
Mm-hmm.
What a mess. Okay,
she didn't even try to hide. I thought she was gonna hide in the
I did
closet
too.
or
Or under.
something. She didn't even try to
She didn't
hide.
even try. She was like, "Hey, hi. So I'm me. I'm here with Jimin. You're who?" Like, and
Right.
everybody's like looks amazing. So she's like, how are all these guys so handsome? Which story of my life when it comes to these fanfics, all of them are like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
they're all handsome.
They're
Like, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as they enter the room, Jen's like, I knew somebody was here, and Hobie kind of at that point is just like, I don't know what to say, but they introduced
Mm-hmm.
themselves. He introduces himself, and he tells her like, "Hey, I'll make you some food," because she hasn't eaten. She's in the hospital. She went out. She hasn't really had like a good meal in like a while. So
Mm-hmm.
he makes some food for her, and she feels like, oh, I'll be all right. So she goes out there, and before she goes outside, Jen gives her some of Jimin's clothes to put on because she didn't have any clothes to wear of her own.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to the kitchen. She eats. She's sitting there. As time is going on, more and more of them are coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she meets the rest of the guys, but she still hasn't met Namjoon yet. And everybody's kind of still like they're interested in her because they're like, what is she doing here? But then they're also like respectful of the fact that she's there and Jim and all that good stuff.
Right.
But they're like, she hasn't seen him yet, and she doesn't really know who they are. Which, side note, I feel like I'm rambling. I'm sorry. They're speaking. So there's parts of it where they're to each other, and she doesn't understand what they're saying. And then there's parts when they're like speaking English, which is kind of cool. I like how they like do that in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess Tay sat next to her, and he was like, "Who are you?" Like asking questions about her. And she just started explaining who she is. But then before they could get too deep into the conversation, first of all, Jungkook just staring at her like,
yeah,
who are you? Jungkook got a little attitude.
yeah,
He like a
brat.
He a brat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're basically trying to figure out who she is, and that's when Jimmy walked in, and Jimmy was like,
Didn't I tell you?
Didn't I tell you to stay in that room? Y'all don't know. Jimmy is a whole nother Jimmy.
Right.
Okay. So he like grabbed her and took her back to the room.
Mm-hmm.
And was like, because that's where he went. He went to go buy her clothes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So he bought her. That was really nice of him. He got her like some cute stuff though. But like mostly like
I know, but
dresses and
like
stuff and like
not
skirts and
not stuff to walk around in a house full of vampires. That's what I didn't
right.
expect.
Not like you are just trying to get them all tempted. Like
Exactly.
weird. But anyway, he got her all these clothes. He comes back, and Yoongi asks like, does he know she's here? And they're like, well, I'm pretty sure we would know if he did because, or something like that. We would know if he.
I think that isn't that when Namjoon comes and said, "Does who know?"
Yeah. Yep.
And then that's what we figured out. Ooh, Namjoon is the man in these streets.
Yeah. So Namjoon is like the boss of them. Like he's like the leader of their. I mean, he's the leader of their group, but like the pack.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they like we find out later on that they go out on these jobs and they do things for money, and so like they live in this big manor and have all the things that they could ever need because they do all these jobs, and they've been in this
Mm-hmm.
town for a while, and they've been living their life, they've been living discreetly, but yeah, so Namjoon comes in with his voice and him just the way they described him, I'm like, he sounds sexy.
I could just imagine him with a black turtleneck on.
Yes, blonde ass hair,
Blonde hair.
glasses every once in a blue moon,
Yes, yes.
trench coat,
Looking all delicious but
looking
all mean at
delicious.
the same
Yes.
time.
And she's already like she's kind of like struck by everybody, but like with
Mm-hmm.
Namjoon, she's like really like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, she's like,
yeah.
like, you are the most gorgeous thing ever.
And
Like,
his his response was like when he sees her, because he kind of just is observing her, and he goes, "So who ordered takeout?" I was like,
yeah.
"No,
Mm-hmm.
no, terrible."
Yeah, he was a jerk.
Yeah, he was a jerk. He was, but
And so
yeah,
basically, they voted for her to stay. And then he was basically like, Jimmy, let me holler at you back here. She can stay, but Jimmy, let me holler at you over here.
right.
So then she goes back to the room and sit there for a while. And then when Jimmy come back, Jimmy all busted up because they done got into a whole fight over it.
Mm-hmm.
And from what the book is implying is that Namjoon is the strongest one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I don't know. Later on, I don't know if Jen is the strongest one. I don't know. We
Well,
don't know.
yeah, because that part got weird.
But at this point, Namjoon is the strongest one.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jimin basically fights for her to stay there, like, and then he also has to do like some jobs,
Yeah, he goes out on like extra jobs. Like Namjoon
right?
Khan is always sending him out, always.
Just for her to stay there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Jimmy gives her the tour, lets her know like where everything's at. Here's the bathroom, blah blah blah. And she by this point he's like back in the room after he and Namjoon got into it.
He tell her, "Do not go to the third floor."
Oh yeah, you stay off that third floor. And what she's
Mm-hmm.
gonna do? At
You know
some
she's
point
gonna go
she's
to
gonna go
that
to the
third
third
floor.
floor. Which
Mm-hmm.
does it happen the same night?
I don't think it's the same night.
It's the next couple of days.
Mm-hmm. It ain't long because she don't do nothing he be saying.
Nothing. He's like, don't do this. She's like, do it. Okay, cool. I
Mm-hmm.
will. So,
While Jimmy going on all these like different jobs or whatever, because he's the only one that's going on these jobs. Evidently, he's
mm-hmm,
like the top assassin
mm-hmm.
because these jobs are like they're supposed to be what like bodyguards. Like, what do they do? They like paid assassins.
Yeah, they're paid. They're hired assassins to go take out people, but like the I guess the good of it is supposed to be like these are bad people that they're taking out
Mm-hmm.
that
Like people
are
wouldn't miss them.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Jimmy's going on all these assignments. Like time is going by at this time, and she's like getting more comfortable in the house. Like she's going to
Yeah.
read books and like going to just like walk around the house and exercise and all this good stuff in the gym.
Yeah. And Jimin, I forgot to mention this, when he got her clothes and stuff, he also bought her a collar.
Mm-hmm.
So, because eventually he starts to bite her, and the collar will serve as coverage for that,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. So, but yeah, like you're saying, she's going around the house, she's doing all this other stuff. I was gonna say she eventually starts to she when she's looking around the house, she sees like Tay and Hobie. They're playing video games, and they're all the other boys are all sitting in the one room together. So this is when she's kind of exploring. She doesn't go inside, but she's just kind of watching them. And then she sees that she hears a piano playing from like another place, so she starts to go follow that. And she comes to
Mm-hmm.
the door, and it's Yoongi who's playing the piano. And so she's sitting there kind of just listening to him play, and he tells her, because again they have this keen sense of like smell, and they can like hear stuff that I guess
Mm-hmm.
the typical person can't. You don't have to lurk, girl, like you can just come inside.
Mm-hmm.
So they're talking about him playing, blah blah blah, and he tells her he would be happy to teach her. So he ends up teaching her piano. So she ends up like having piano lessons while she's at this house.
Mm-hmm. So while Jimin going on his assignments,
Mm-hmm.
she goes and have her lessons with Yugi.
Mm-hmm.
As time progresses, she get real close to Yugi.
Yeah. So her and Yoongi start getting close. When did they have?
Well, at first when her, they wasn't doing anything, and then she went back to Jimmy's room, and then they start like feeling on each other, but they wasn't having sex.
Right. I was like,
They were
when did that
just,
whole thing?
yeah, she just start. They were just like feeling on each other, and he was basically just making her have orgasms without giving her the dick. Okay.
Right, right, right.
And then it
So
was odd because he knew that when he did, he was wanting to feed from her too.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until that Namjoon thing where she heard noises coming from Namjoon's room.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
she went,
gosh.
yes.
See.
So she goes upstairs wondering, being nosy because this girl was
Being
nosy.
nosy, knowing that
Goes
she's going up the stairs to the freaking
knowing
third
she
floor.
to the third floor. So she going up
Gosh.
there and she's peeping through. And now June got this girl bent over, tearing her up, honey. And she
Mm-hmm.
feeling herself. She's like, oh, like this look good. Like, ooh, he doing a
Mm-hmm.
thing to her. She started getting all wet and stuff. And he smelled her.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever she started getting wet, they smell her.
They can smell it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They can smell it when she gets wet, and they can smell it when she's on her period.
Right. Mm-hmm. And
So,
they can hear her heartbeat.
and her heart beating. Yep.
Yeah. And so when she was there, she couldn't stop watching him. She could not stop
Right.
watching him, and then he looked up and he seen her, like he knew
Right.
she was there, and then he just like stared at her while he was doing his thing.
Yes.
Picture the visual. Picture the
Oh
visual.
my gosh.
I just know he hitting it from the back, staring at her, and the
Staring at
girl and the
her.
girl just screaming, like
Right.
he beating down the block. Okay.
Okay.
And then after a while of her watching, she's like, I gotta leave, but then she can't leave. She's
She
just
can't
like
leave.
she's drawn to it. And then he bites her.
Yeah, so he bites the girl as he's still looking at the other girl
Mm-hmm.
outside the door, and he ends up draining the girl he was having sex with
Mm-hmm.
and leaves her to be.
Yep. And so she runs downstairs into Jimmy's room crying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why are you crying? You sit
Right.
there and watch the whole thing.
Right.
But she ran back to Jimmy's room and she's crying. And Jimmy asks her what's wrong and all this stuff. Jimmy's starting to feel some type of way towards her now.
Yeah.
And so she was like outside Namjoon and she told him what he was doing and how he fed from her. And then, he basically got her to quit crying and he asked her, is that what you want?
Right.
And she couldn't say nothing.
Right.
And so that's when they start having sex.
Right. Which is the
And
first
then
time.
the first time, and she was a virgin.
Yes.
And so they start having sex. He took it real nice and easy on her. Oh, God, Jimmy.
This right? The description. Oh gosh.
Yes.
The
And
smut in this story
it
is
was so
so
good.
good and so detailed. Like
Detail.
you have to read it. It's if you don't do nothing else but skip through the smut, man, gosh.
It was so smutty.
Yes.
It's so smutty that when she don't write smut, you're like, where's the smut? Where's the smut? Like, you missed that smut because it's just that good.
Yes.
But he's doing his thing with her, and then she wants him to bite her.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, are you sure? Are you sure? And she's like, yeah. And this time when he bites her, it's not like the bite. He bit her in the
At the
outside of the
club.
club.
Yeah.
Because that was more of an attack.
Yeah.
This
And
was
he
more of
said
a
this was like a love bite kind of. And he said he would never be that rough with her ever again.
Yeah.
So
when he bit her, she kind of like liked it. Like it kind of made her orgasm by itself. Just that bite. So that goes down.
So
Then go ahead.
I was gonna say, so Jimin is like a total like dom in this story. Like he calls
He's
her
a daddy.
Yeah. He calls her kitten. It's so cool because all the members call her something different.
I know it.
I think it's so cute.
It is.
So she now has had some dick for the first time of her life, and it's like great, it's wonderful. She wakes up and Jimin is in bed. She goes downstairs. She's gonna have breakfast. I remember they had a conversation about what to call each other because she calls him young, and he's like, "You use that for me. You wouldn't call me that."
Right.
So
he said, "You call me Oopa."
Yeah, and so she's like, "Okay, well, I'll call you Opa, but like, what should I call Jimin?" And he's like, "Well, most people use Jagya, but it just depends on what what Jimin likes or whatever." So that they have that conversation. Anyway,
she goes back that night with Jimmy. They have sex, and then she calls him that. What is it, Jagya?
Jagya, yeah,
yeah. And then he raises up in the bed, and he turn. It's like he kind of turns his neck, and like,
yeah.
do not call me that.
So backstory.
Mm-hmm.
When what was it? The girl he used to call him that before were turned into vampires when they were like really sick.
Backstory to that. It's like another backstory to that.
Okay.
They were all sick with some kind of
virus or something.
Yeah, like an immune disease, like a blood immune disease or something. And it was all of them. Plus Namjoon's sister.
Right. So before they all started getting real sick, Namjoon's sister was like really, really sick.
Yeah.
And Namjoon was trying to find out different ways to save her no matter what, and ended up striking a deal with some people, and it ended up not working out in his favor, and his sister ended up dying. And then
he got turned into a vampire. And then before he could go back, because the vampire tricked him for some reason.
Yeah, which I didn't get.
I don't understand how he tricked him, because I don't even understand what did he think the vampire was going to do.
Yeah.
But the vampire tricked him, and he turned Namjoon. And Namjoon, before he could get back to turn his sister, she was already dead.
Yeah.
And so Namjoon went mad, and then Namjoon went back to his parents and killed his parents and drained their blood with it, like not even meaning to. But when you're a young vampire, you can't help it. And so then he convinced all his friends to turn too.
Which, like, friendship, because I don't know. If somebody's like, "Hey, girl, so I'm a vampire now. You want to take part in this?" I don't know if I could be like, "Yeah, girl, I'm down."
But you're gonna have immortal life forever.
I know there's some things I want to be around for. I don't know if I would want to see that. Then you got like, I mean, I guess if you have your friends, but then you have all your loved ones that are gonna die and they're not gonna be
Yeah,
around.
everybody's gonna
It's
die around
sad.
you.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have a family ever. Yeah.
Oh.
You know what's funny? Whenever, like, they're freaking cold all the time because they're vampires, but when they had sex, the nut was warm. Wasn't that funny?
That was too funny. Bring up a point. Like, how? Why was it not cold as well?
Right, because it says she felt the warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, why ain't that cold?
Questions. That's so funny. So, okay, time goes on. I don't want to skip too much, but the story's so long that I want to skip some parts.
Well, we was telling the backstory, but that was the backstory to the backstory.
That was the backstory to the backstory. So
the backstory you was talking about is his girlfriend. He was sick.
So she was coming to visit him and all that stuff when he was sick, but I guess it got like really, really bad, and she stopped coming to see him and pretty much was like, I can't do this anymore, and like left him alone. Well, anyway, she used to call him Jagya, and so that like ruined that for him.
Right.
So he don't want to be called that, and so his I guess follow up is call me daddy.
God,
which
I like that so much better.
I'm so conflicted, but as time has gone on, I'm starting to like understand why people are into it. Like I'm like, okay, I get it. It's a little tough for me, but I get it.
I mean, if Jimmy was a yo man, you would call him daddy too.
I know, but I have like it's such because I call my actual father daddy, so it's like it's a weird.
You know, me and my friends was talking about this, and I guess because for some people, like my dad was not really there for me.
Oh, okay.
He was there some of the time, but not all the time. So I didn't call him daddy. I called him dad. And he was there. So, you know, I didn't say this much. So saying it to my husband sometimes.
Okay.
It's okay with me. But my best friend, which her father was very much in her life, she cannot call her husband that.
Yeah, I have a hard time with it. Like I don't know. Like as time has gone on, I'm starting to break away from that, but I still because I talk to my daddy like every day, every other day, so it's just like I don't know.
I don't know. Could you call him Zaddy?
I see. Normally, if I say that, I do say Zaddy. I won't. Yeah, I can do that.
What about Big Daddy?
No. No. Mm-mm. No. Mm-mm.
Well, if not, Jim came around and he said, call me daddy.
I would call him whatever he wanted.
Whole tune change.
Be a little hesitant, but I would do it just because.
Yeah, we'll make an exception.
He's the only one. Anyway, sorry. So so that's what he tells her. Tells her he wants to be called, and she's like, cool.
Yeah, because it's so sexy. Because she's like, well, what do I call you? He was like, call me daddy. I'm like,
I was like, okay, all right.
This story got me looking at Jim in a whole nother way. I'm not even gonna lie.
Okay,
he moved up on the biases because of this story.
I felt like that for the longest, and then Jen and Hobie and JK. I was like, well, okay. All right, so yes, so there's some extra things that happen. Somehow, so she still continued to go into her piano lessons, and by this point, her and Jim are like a thing. Like they have this nice little setup, whatever. And her and Yoongi are really starting to like get close to one another. The attraction is there, like it's very strong, and so there is I think when they first like kiss or something like that, it's without like Jim knowing about it. So she ends up telling him, and he's like, "Is that what you want?" And so she's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "All right, but whatever you do with him, you're gonna have to do with me plus and some."
Right,
So
and
she's
that's the
like,
like rule that he has
that's
for
the
her
rule.
for anybody.
Yeah, like she has to get permission, and whatever happens, he has to get double.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, for somebody who went from a virgin to now, like,
Super freak.
I mean, all right.
Because she's drawn to them.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I
mean, I
guess,
get it.
I don't know, when you watch True Blood, okay, because that's what I always refer back to. When you, even on Twilight, if you think about it, she was drawn to him. She kept staring at him, remember? And
Yeah.
in True Blood, it was the same way with Bill
Yeah,
and
because I
Ellie.
remember in True Blood they used to glamour
Yeah.
people. Maybe that's, I don't know if they were glamoring her or not, or if she just was attracted to them.
I don't know if they were glamoring people because if that was the way, then Namjoon would have had his way a long time ago.
True. True. He was just fine, and she was just enamored with him. So that's fine too.
Like, even though they're vampires, they're super respectful though.
Yeah, and they were like on it. Like they were really. So anyway, they. Sorry, tangent. Um. So yeah, so she gets permission to fool around with Yoongi, and then he doesn't think like it's real or whatever because Jimin is like there, right? Isn't like the first
Yeah,
time they have an experience
yeah,
together, Jimin's
right.
there. So Jimin Yoongi's like looking like,
Jimmy
can I do this?
initiated it.
So he initiates it. Oh, but he wanted. Oh wait, no, that's, I think that might be later on. Anyway, they have their first time, and then afterwards she has to do the same with Jimin. That's
No,
that
no,
on
no,
that.
no, no. Jimmy initiated with them at first. Remember? And
Yeah,
then
but
and then after when Jimmy left and went on assignment and she went back in that room with him, she ended up giving him head, remember?
oh
And
yeah, and
that's
so she had to do the same. He taught her.
yeah,
That was her first time doing that.
right.
Yeah, what an interesting. You just learned all types of
I know,
stuff.
because it was like such a can I do this with him? She was like texting him. He was
Right.
like, yeah, but you know what the rules.
You know the rules,
Yeah.
girl. So she was like, okay. So she does that with Yoongi. Jimin comes back. She does the same. There's at a point. So that kind of goes on for a little bit. And so Jimin, like, I don't want to say like pimps her out, but he kind of pimps her out. Low key.
Well,
Kind of.
yeah, but he also wants to make her happy.
I mean, yes, but he also pimps her out.
He don't pimp her out because if he pimp her out, he was
Kind
getting
of.
something from it. He wasn't really getting anything from for it.
I mean, that's true, but like, still, it's just a weird setup.
Yeah, it is really. It really is. Because then, like after a while, they were in that room playing all games and stuff, and he was on assignment with Yugi. And then they came
Oh
back,
yeah.
and then he texted Tay and was like, "I see how you looking at her."
Right. Do you want
Yeah,
Lord.
but he let Tay just do whatever he did with her.
Yeah, because he dropped her off and was like, all right, in his room,
And
in Tay's
said, "Let
room.
me hear her scream."
Right, and bounced.
Yes.
I was like, wow. And Tay had quite the interesting
Yeah.
collection.
He had a toy.
Tay, yeah, Tay was part of some group. What was the group? I forgot what group it was. He used to go to control
He
his um
BDSM. He like BDSM.
yeah, he was going to like some club or whatever where they were like a group for them because he was trying to find new improved ways to control his thirst.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently Tay is like extremely violent,
Right,
which
because he was killed in
yeah, Tay
the
beat us
tank.
beat us him. Yeah, so he was apparently like a beast because he, even though he had this really like calm and chill demeanor and that was really playful, apparently he was kind of with the shits when it came to hunting and gathering and all that stuff.
Well, the way he handled his aggression during BDSM was to kill them.
Yeah,
And he was
and
killing so many people or doing so much that he got them noticed and they had to move.
they had to move, and so I think it was Namjoon that recommended he go there to try to let out
Yeah.
his aggression, and he, by doing that, he became very submissive when it came to like sexual things. So he pulls out a toy and she's like, hey, I just lost my virginity like a week ago, I can't even do all that. He's like, it's not for you, girl, it's for me.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, "Oh, okay." Which I was so scared because don't forget the deal was whatever she does with him,
She has
he
to do
has to
with
do with
Jimmy.
Jimin. So I'm like, is Jimin gonna?
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cause she said after they finished, and she did it 2 times just by doing that with him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when they got finished, she said, "Let can I borrow these beads?"
Right. Let me get the smallest ones.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, here you go, sis. Enjoy. Like,
Right.
oh
Because
man.
even though she was having sex with other people, there was no like at this point, even with Yugi, there was like no emotional attachment.
Right. It was just for them to get off and let it be that. Which
Mm-hmm.
it ends up changing, but well,
What did Tay call her?
he called her I actually think he called her Jagia.
Yeah, he did. He did. He
Yoongi
called
called
her
her
that. He
Yoongi
called her
called her
princess,
yeah, called her princess.
or the
Jimin,
Korean word for princess, which I could not pronounce.
yeah, and I can't think of it right now. It's June. I don't remember, but
Mm.
he calls her princess. Jimin calls her kitten. Namjoon called her
Little one.
little one. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, little one? Are you kidding me? Oh, JK called her Nuna,
Yep.
and Jin called her
Sweetheart.
sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, little one. Little one took me down. I was like, little one? Oh, and I could just hear
Right.
him say it. Oh my god.
Yes.
Anyway,
Which we all knew JK was gonna call her Nuna.
yeah, that was a guess. Which
Mm-hmm.
technically, because he was like 20 to 40 years older than she was, it
Yeah.
was weird, but it made sense because in the state he looked, he would have been younger than her.
Right.
So, yeah, so Tay and her do some things that goes back. Jimin, they pretty much do the same thing,
Except for he used them beads
except
on her.
right. He used them on her instead of on himself,
Mm-hmm.
and so his first question though was like, "Oh, did Tay use these on you?" She's like, "No, he used them on himself," and I thought that was gonna be like his thing, and that he was gonna have to do it, but he didn't.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. So we will see you next episode, which will be the part 2 of this one.